I mean, come on, guys. We all knew it was bound to happen eventually, right? You can't go walking around as I do, looking like a grand old snack and then not get snatched up. And I get it. It's a very sad day. But yo, I'm overjoyed. I mean, look at her. She's great. But what am I referring to? Um, I am now married. But what am I talking about? I'm talking about Elyon's wife, Noonki. Noon as in the time of day, and key as in the other way you would say key, i.e., ends like that. However, that isn't necessarily where their story started. So, I was on the bus, ended up at a small little town called Prosperity Falls. Typically, not a big deal. Just a little minor town that ironically had a pretty good football run about 10 years ago. Not too much ever came out of that spot though, or at least one would assume. But the bus I took, I had gotten there late at night. And I didn't really know where I was, so my first thought was, let me see if I can find a hotel, a motel, some local spot I can rest in until the sun comes up. I was just looking around for a bit and about, and I started hearing something. Typically, you ignore stuff like that, that's how you turn up missing. I did not. And that's when I saw her. Little tidbits and clues to just key you in on what was going on. It was a dog and a badger. Didn't didn't, didn't really feel necessarily like interacting with any of them. At least not yet. I was young and impulsive, but I also knew better than to start picking fights with strangers, especially if I didn't understand the context. Keep your head down kind of scenario. So I started eavesdropping because clearly I can't follow my own advice. And the way she spoke to them calmly, rationally, but she had a sense of familiarity with him. And then she asked him politely to leave. And the dog spoke to the badger, who I found out later his name was Tony. And they weren't exactly keen on leaving. So when one of them shoved her to the floor, I stepped in because at that point, I wasn't trying to hear anything about it. And another thing I thought was funny is they were part of a gang called the Black Knights, which is funny because the football team is called the Fall Knights. Yeah, real creative bunch, this small time town. And so I stepped in, and me being me, I felt the need to taunt them because if there's one thing I can run faster than my legs, it's my mouth. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that one bit. One of them tried to rush me. I moved because I was way quicker than he was. Then they started trying to encircle me. Now, while I did get a good hit off and break one of their noses, I pretty quickly got overwhelmed after that. And yeah, they beat me. They beat me bad. It wasn't even close. I remember spitting in one of their faces, and then I saw nothing afterwards. I thought I was dead. And then later I woke up surrounded by just the sight of wood. Like, just nothing but wood everywhere. The space was empty, and I had a sheet over me. Like I said, I thought I was dead. But no, turns out I was in her back garden area, in her shed, where there is only one window, and it doesn't open. It's amazing I didn't die of heat stroke. But again, who am I to look a gift lady in the mouth? And so she came in afterwards and essentially started looking me over. And, I got a real good look at her too. She looked like a Sunday service lady, like a teacher of sorts. I told her my name, and when I asked for hers, she just said her name was Nutki. She also gave me a few nicknames that she's gathered over her time here, some of which I thought was fun. There was Mother Noon, Matriarch, Nunez, Nunu, which I thought was cute, Mother Giselle, Mommy Nay, and apparently someone started calling her Mama Louise. I think that was like a running gag because of her, let's just say, extensive, exaggerated parts of her body. Let's call it that. Not inaccurate though. And turns out the other guy's name, the dog that hit me, was called Tony. I ain't like Tony. Tony sounded like a prick. But, that's neither here nor there. I got mad though. I got real mad. I kept thinking, oh man, Pops will roll over in his grave if he saw how I ended up there. He could have handled those guys no problem. But maybe I'm comparing myself too much to someone I barely remember. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that. And it wasn't until I realized she was staring at me for a minute that I didn't have clothes on at all. So I freaked out. And yeah, apparently she was washing my clothes because there was a lot of blood on them, which is why I kept questioning afterwards why I didn't get taken to a hospital. But who knows? Maybe she was a doctor. She took care of me well enough, I suppose. But she also, when I asked about those two boys, she said after that altercation, generous of her to call it that, but apparently the cops showed up and they ran off. They got some sort of club area that they're hiding out at. No, but they can't really pinpoint where yet, so that's why they're still relatively in the area. Go figure. And it's funny though, she didn't strike me as a nun, at least not when I first talked to her. But that kind of upset her. So we kind of glossed over that part. Or at least for that day. She left, and my first thought was, second I'm back on my feet, I'm going to find those two guys and knock their heads in. But I couldn't do that. At least not yet, because she had my clothes. So, once she actually gave me my clothes back, she decided that. Well, she also, good on her though, she actually stitched it back together and got a good chunk of the blood out. So, I didn't look like I just got off of a horrific accident. But she also decided, like, as, let's call it, payment for her services for me, that I would just help her out today with her little commute around town. I'd pull a wagon for her, and she'd pull her wagon, and then we would just walk around, and she'd be dropping off stuff to people. And I was like, okay, simple enough. And also, don't take this as an excuse. That shit was heavy. I don't know how she made that look so easy, but the wagon she had me pull was not a simple wagon. That thing had some weight to it. And again, crazy to think about. I can't stress this part enough. It's just like you would think, oh, okay, she lives by herself at this little church or whatever. Be a little bit of simple stuff here and there. No, there was a lot of food on it. There was blankets on it, medical equipment, like bandages and stuff, like little trinkets here and there, like stuff people could use on the daily. There were linens, like there was canned goods, there was jarred goods. I don't like you would think she was giving to charity with all this stuff that she had on there. And yeah, that was not fun for me to drag around. And it was a long day. And it was the strangest thing though, from while we were there. She was passing out clothes, food, like a whole bunch of essential stuff. Like you would think she was like a saint, no pun intended towards her, with everything she was doing. But she got very mixed signals from people. Some people like the local children love her. They were so happy to see her. Some of the parents, not so much. Like some of them actively talked down to her. And I was gonna stop the car and promptly insert my foot in a spot she probably wouldn't have wanted me to put it. But she just insisted we just keep going. This is something she was just used to. I didn't understand why at first, but it's her town. I ain't questioning it. And again, like I said, she was well received by some other people. And she just passed stuff along. You would think a lot of these people just took her for granted with the way, like, everyone just did things with her. And she smiled the whole time, but I don't know. Something just felt weird whenever I looked at her. Wasn't until we got to the cemetery that we had a slight change of pace because, well, for one, most of the stuff gone, along with some of my male pride when she tried to take over from pulling when my hand slipped. But, like I said, peaceful time for the most part. She started issuing prayers, cleaning off the tombstones, going through her whole little shtick. And like I said, she was very passionate about it. She wished them well, and at one point, she asked me to jump in, if I wanted to say anything to the dearly departed. I told her I'm not exactly the most spiritual person, or at least it's not my niche. I wouldn't even know where to begin. And she said, just, wish them well off on their travels. Weird way to word that, like that, but I was like, okay, sure, I can do that. And I said the wind prayer that I learned from my father, which was, I pray in this breath that your spirit follows the serenity of the changing winds, and that you flow free and without the cumbersome mortal coil that kept you grounded. Every breath of ours is thanks to you keeping our lungs afloat, friend. So says this vessel. And she thought it was a sweet gesture. Then we got to talking a bit more, and she asked me about my folks, so I told them. I told her what my mother did to my father, and, you know, I was like, I ain't felt like really talking about it, because it was still fresh in my mind, at least. Took a few years for me to, I guess, stop dwelling on it. And so, well, I kind of asked her about the people in the town, and she said it was just, I guess, a bit of jealousy amongst paranoia because, like I said, the local school children used to help her out a lot at the church, and a lot of guys would be interested in talking to her. I can hazard a guess as to why. But her herself, she was very not interested, or at least not like in that sense. But a lot of the ladies in town, especially the married variety, didn't like them trying to spend so much time with her in that area. So that's when the rumors started spreading. First, it was simple things like, she was actually she was a homewrecker. She was actually manipulating these people into leaving their wives. Same thing with the children, abandoning people. Never happened, but, people like to run with stuff. Then it became even worse that she was actually this like depraved killer who lures people away and then slaughters them in her basement because some people have went missing over the couple of years that she had been there, and so on and so forth. And it basically almost stemmed into a full-fledged witch hunt where she just decided to lock up the church entirely and barely acknowledge anybody. And her bringing people stuff, she saw it as her just doing her duties in the town to help people. I guess they looked at it more like a bribe or some kind of tribute to keep them from running her off, which I thought was stupid, but, to each their own. But the one thing that they really blamed her for was, ironically, the gang themselves. Because again, while she didn't necessarily have anything to do with how they turned out, the Black Knights, she felt responsible because at a like when she first got there, they were her firstborns, her first kids in a sense, her orphans, and she looked after them. But the problem with that was the oldest one, who I guess was also the biggest, was a Komodo dragon. His name was Luca Drago. And she doesn't know exactly what happened. She doesn't know if he fell into a bad crowd or if he was always kind of like that. But he just had a lot of rage in him, a lot of anger, and he decided to take out take it out on the town. But they knew where he came from, and they blamed her for it. So when he left with all the other boys in her group, then she kind of just lost some of her spirit when they dipped, and she blamed herself for it. And I told her, "There's no, you did what you could. There's no way you can be held responsible for what they were up to." But she still got a little down on herself for it. And I told her, I was like, "Hey, look, you don't gotta worry about that, cause I'm here now, right? And I'll take care of it." And I don't know if she just put on that smile to make me feel better or because she genuinely believed in me, but it was going better in regards to that for her till we got back to the church. Because then, oh, then it got way, way worse. The place was smashed open, the windows were busted, the doors were knocked off the hinges. And then if you look inside, there were pews thrown all over the place, the candlesticks were broken. Like it looked like someone ransacked the place. And she got just so distraught after that. She started crying. I don't even remember her telling me to stop. I just remember running. And I kept running. And I ran right in there. And that's where I saw him. I saw Luca there. Dude had on a leather jacket, a muscle tee, pants and boots. He looked like one of those greasers from the 50s. Like if he had hair, it'd probably be slicked back or like a little pompadour. He even had a butterfly knife, which I thought was really, well, pathetic because there are better knives out there. But what do I know? And guess what? I got to run into Tony and Monty again. And they both really felt the need to try to fight me. Let's just say he won't be having kids anytime soon. At least not for a minute. So once I actually like dealt with Tony, Monty kind of lost his nerve after I hit both of them. So he kind of just left. And then I had to deal with Luca. And while I was faster than him, he was just built different. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because of his like physiology, but every strike I did to him just seemed to bounce off of him. He didn't even register a lot of my hits. While he couldn't hit me, I couldn't hurt him. So we were at a bit of a stalemate until one of us could land a strike proper. And I don't know if you've ever been hit with the Komodo dragon tail. It is stated that they can hit as hard as sledgehammers. So yeah, that knocked the wind out of me pretty bad. And then he used his size to just pin me onto the floor and took his knife out, and I kind of just. I struggled, Lord knows I struggled. But it wasn't enough, and I thought it was the end at that point, so I kind of just shut my eyes, because I couldn't do much else. But it never came to be. I, I, I felt the pressure get off my chest, and I looked up and I just saw her there. She had stuck a piece of wood into the knife and was physically pushing him back. Again, I need her to arm wrestle Boo at some point because she just has some power behind her or something. And she was actually holding him off. And then When I got up and collected myself, I saw that he had hit her, like just decked her right in the face. And I guess that kind of shut her down for a second because it didn't knock her out or anything, but I think the idea of getting struck by someone she considered her child kind of just stun locked her. And I felt a certain kind of way about that. So when I hit him again, I wanted to make sure this time he was going to feel it. So I went straight into his eye. Every time I could hit him, I just kept hitting him. And I hit. Once I actually staggered him, got him to trip on himself. And the second he tried to get back up, I put him right back into the floor. Again and again and again and again. I just had to make sure that he wasn't going to be a problem. And eventually, I got the better of him. He was stunned and on the floor. He wasn't necessarily unconscious, but he wasn't moving anytime soon. So, no, me being me, I assessed the situation and saw him still trying to get to his knife, so I took it. But I wasn't really sure what I was about to do with it. I just started walking towards him. And at one point, everything just kind of went black. Same thing. Wasn't sure if I passed out or died. Just knew that when I woke up, I was back in the shed again. And I was full of questions. I wasn't sure if I had gotten snuck, if I had blacked out, or anything really. And yet, there she was again. She was quiet. Her eyes were, I guess, a bit swollen, like she had been crying, and her body had bruises here and there, especially one on her face. She couldn't even really talk to me. Everything was kind of just a mumble or a whisper. Apparently, Monty had went and called the cops. They came and arrested all three of them, and he said a lot of messed up stuff to her. Luca did as they dragged him away. Said she was a failure of a mother, started cursing her up and down, like a lot of heinous stuff. And she started to believe it because she just felt like she failed them. I didn't know what to say to her. She was kind of breaking down, so I just gave her a hug and we got real quiet for a second. She said I was a good kid. She was happy I made my way here. Then we kind of fell asleep. And when I woke up, she offered me some more medicine, kind of like the one she gave me before. And I actually got to taste it this time and really wish I didn't. That stuff is awful. But it numbed me. It numbed me a lot. Like too much. Like I thought I was gonna black out. And she had to tell me, she was like, the only way she was gonna heal properly, or at least to her full extent, was if she took something from me. Because she was gonna disappear after this. And I got stubborn, so when I felt my eyes closing, I kept slamming myself into stuff. And she freaked out because she didn't want me to hurt myself. And then she held me. And then she kissed me. And we lingered there for a while. Everything else after that was a bit fuzzy, but I remember waking up later on the bus. The guy said I'd been out for like 12 hours. I was sore. I felt oddly relaxed, but I can't remember too much about what happened. Apparently, she was with me on the bus. She got off 3 hours before I woke up. And she left me a little gift in a bag. It's a nice little necklace. I still keep it with me too. And she left me a little note that she was actually very happy that I helped her move forward a bit in life and that she wanted me to settle down one day, start a family. She didn't want my life being aimless or short. And she was actually hoping to see me again one day. And that was really sweet of her. But that was a couple years ago. I didn't really get to see Nuki for a while since then. But she had this feeling about it. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was like a vibe or an aura I started picking up on. But that was a brief encounter. Hard to think that it took place over the course of a day or two. But like 2 years down the line, ran to another lady, which caused me no shortage of problems. A chick named Nara. And she had a very similar feeling for some reason to Nuki, but she was the complete opposite of a person. She is selfish. She is awful. Can you tell I don't like her? She's kind of a bitch. And how I first met her was at least eventful. It was certainly eventful. She was a lounge singer at, or at least performing on stage at a local area. And when we first met, she was incredibly confrontational with me, combative, did not like me, and the feeling was mutual because I thought she was kind of, uh, you know, up her own backside. So during her performance, I'll give her that. That girl can sing. She could sing her ass off. But you know, the performance wasn't the issue. Neither was the people pining for her or her doing her more, let's say, enriching performance to get attention for people. The little flirts here and there. It was the bullets that started flying right after. That was the issue. Because apparently, someone was hunting her. And they had a pair of twins with guns trying to find her. It was a guy who was real quiet, real stoic, like y'all would like him. Real just simple man at the end of the day. And his sister, very loud, very extra. But she was crazy sounding. I don't know about crazy as a person, because let's be real, they're both hardened killers. How do I know this? Because they shot up the club I was in. I don't even think they cared about casualties. They were going for just everyone in the room that was moving, but they knew who their target was. It was her. Now, while I am not the nicest person in the world, and I don't exactly have a hero's heart for the most part, I don't work for free. I don't like the idea of innocent people just getting gunned down. So, I decided to step in. And funny thing was, this was around the time that Boo had completed her first set of gauntlets. Not the rough and tumble primitive kind, but more of a prototype version that I actually got to try out when I was fighting there. Luckily, they're bullet resistant. So I fought both of them for a minute, and Nora snuck out the back. I didn't have too much time to ask why they were there because I got belted in the face with one of their chains. For some reason, they both fight with chains. I don't know why. That shit hurts. And they took off right after her. So I basically gave chase. And that's kind of how the day went, or I guess the night, so to speak. Them trying to aim gunfire towards her, me getting in the way of it, despite my best interest, and her continuously running. It got to the point, though, where she kind of trapped herself on the roof of a building because she just kept running up and up and up instead of, I don't know, finding a spot to hide in. But I stepped in and saved her. She did get winged, though. I couldn't stop that, but hey, shoulder's better than your skull, right? So I fought them again. And because they were out of bullets, they were forced to use their weapons. And I had the advantage on that one. I don't mean to brag, but I had been getting better over them last 2 years, really hitting my stride. I still wasn't as good as a fighter as I am now, but good enough to deal with those jokers. Speaking of which, I knocked them both off the roof. Well, I knocked one into the other one, and then they both fell off the roof. I was considering catching them until I remembered that they probably would have tried to throw me off the second I pulled them up, and I wasn't risking any of that. But I was tired, I was exhausted, and very similar to how I started feeling numb after Nuki gave me her medicine, I felt like I just kind of felt that again, which is weird though because I didn't drink anything. And I remember blacking out. And when I woke up, I wasn't as tired as I was during that night with Nuki, so I was just confused. I didn't know what happened. I didn't even know what was going on. I looked around and just didn't see no one. Nora was gone. The twins were gone. So I just assumed, okay, I think I did a good thing. Alright, guess I better get back home or something. Or on to my next job. Then, cut forward a few years later, I had just unearthed some scrolls from this old temple my dad went to when he was younger, and I learned more about my wind-based fighting style and how to transition between it. So, I was feeling good. I even had Boo with me at the time, and we started recruiting some smaller members here and there to our mercenary team, make it bigger, and we were doing good with that. She was working on the next set of heavy gauntlets, and she had perfected mine at that point. And, ooh, I love my modern ones. Oh, they're so good. So, needless to say, I was enjoying myself. I even decided, because I was in such a good mood, I was gonna go to a club and celebrate. And second I got there, it was real peaceful, The music was going, the bodies were grooving, I was at the bar. Now I know what you're thinking. I thought you didn't really drink like that. I don't. I get like a I get like a glass or two from time to time. Alcohol has never been my strongest point. I leave the heavy drinking to stuff like don't tell Boo I said she's an alcoholic. But that girl can pound them back. But I'm getting off topic. The night had gone relatively peaceful until I saw one of the bouncers go flying through the wall. Because apparently he had been launched. And lo and behold, as someone I never thought I'd run into, because, well, I didn't think I was notorious enough to be hunted by him. It was the Bengal Tiger Assassin. His name was Typhon. And the only difference I can say between him and those twins I fought before was he at least has a code of ethics when it comes to dealing with people. If you are not his main target, you are not going to die. Or at least he won't go out of his way to kill you. He doesn't go after innocents, which I'll give him props for. Bare minimum for an assassin is having some code of ethics, so I'll give him that. But he started skulking towards some woman. And like I said, at the same time, I was wondering, like, hey, what's going on over here? So I kind of just did what I usually did and butted into a situation that had nothing to do with me. And I said, could you maybe not kill anyone in the middle of this nightclub? This is kind of my off day. He ignored me. I said, can you at least tell me what she's done that she has to die? He didn't tell me. And I told him, I said, I can't, in good conscience, let you do anything. And at that point, he said, and I'll never forget it, you'll try. And he was right, because we immediately started fighting after that. Well, I say it was a fight. He was kind of just toying with me, because I couldn't touch the guy. He was just as quick as I was, if not faster. His body was a lot tougher, and he was a seasoned fighter. Whereas mine is more, well, I'm not gonna say I'm an amateur, but I'm not. I knew I wasn't on his level. Like even with my gauntlets, having some like tools at the trade I could try to surprise him with, he wasn't. I still wasn't any closer to landing a hit on him. I could close the gap here and there and even get around him a little bit, but I couldn't. I haven't. I didn't land a single blow. The only reason the fight even broke off properly, because again kicking my ass, was because the owner of the club came out with a gun and started firing at us. And you know, when I don't know if you've ever fired a gun at a crowd full of people, people tend to scatter and panic, and then a fire broke out. So I grabbed the lady that he was going after and let her out back, and we looped around a few times in different directions, going towards a nearby like motel area I was just somewhat familiar with because I passed through it last time I was in the neighborhood. And it wasn't until I got a good look at the lady that she looked relatively familiar. Or it wasn't more so she looked familiar, I couldn't tell who she was, but the look in her eyes, it just rang familiar to me. I kept thinking, I swear we've seen each other before. Then she pulled the wig off in a sense, or she materialized herself as somebody else. Like it was Nora, is basically what I was gonna say. Apparently, she can shapeshift. Go figure. When I asked how she did that, she didn't answer me. She just said she had to make a phone call. So I was like, whatever, lady, you do you. And so she took. Actually, no, that's a lie. She didn't even use her phone. She was worried it was being tracked. She asked to use mine. Well, demanded was the better question. I said, hurry up. And so she called somebody. It was weird though. She gave me a weird look when she was dialing the phone for some reason. But that's neither here nor there. When she called the person, they agreed to meet up somewhere in the city. It was a apartment building. So, we dressed her down a little bit. I put on my hoodie and we kind of just snuck through the city, keeping an eye for the areas. She was watching the streets. I was watching the rooftops because knowing Typhon, he's not exactly somebody who blends in. So I kept thinking, if he's going to attack from anywhere, it'd be from the sky because that's the least chance that we'd get to see this person. There's a lesser chance we would see this person. I'm sorry, I just had to rephrase that. So I was like, okay, why not? And once we got there, I couldn't believe my eyes. I was excited. I was happy because I haven't seen Nuki in so long. I was curious how they knew each other, but well, I wasn't that curious. I pushed her out the way and just jumped on that woman. I was so happy. I just hugged her. She was great, and she couldn't believe she couldn't believe she had saw me. So when I asked how they knew each other, she said they were like old friends from when she was a child. And then I asked, no, I was like, okay, cool. I'm glad you guys know each other and all that, and I'm sure y'all having fun with this little reunion. Why are people trying to kill you? Because she neglected to tell Nuki any of this stuff over the phone. Apparently, Nora is well, she's a mob wife, or was. She would change her shape, seduce mobsters, and basically live off their fortune until she decided to jump to somebody else, or vice versa, they got taken out by somebody else. And then boom, new face, new way, and she would just go about doing that for a good while. When I asked how she's able to shapeshift and do all this other like stuff, she said she drained her last husband and took all of his money. And that's why those people are after her because they want it back. So when I said drain, I thought she was like a vampire. Ironically, I have met a vampire, so that wasn't too far out of my realm of expertise. She actually works at the Sweet Madness. Go figure. But no, it was because she was a succubus. Succubi, I guess, because it's just one of her. And apparently, so is Nuki. And at first, I was a bit confused because the idea of them being like that never really, like, it never came into my mind that it was something supernatural. And then she was like, haven't you ever looked at her and felt a certain kind of way just by being in her presence? And I thought about it for a minute. I was like, I mean, that's not saying much. I mean, have you seen her? I was like, I was already thinking stuff when I saw her. But she said no, not in the sense of developing feelings or anything like that. Just like a strange, raw passion, desire, just by being in proximity with her. Like, like you just have like. Apparently, being around her, people tend to get what she calls the hungry, like the ravenous eyes, so to speak. Like you stare long enough, you start frothing at the mouth a little bit. You know, your skin gets all sensitive. You, your teeth and tongue start longing for a taste. And I remember when I first met her. I mean, yeah, I found her attractive, but it never really hit me like that. But then again, I was only around her for a short amount of time. I started thinking, maybe that's what happened to the people that kept coming around her, all those men and stuff, and maybe that's why the women got so jealous from before. But again, it's not like she just. And I asked, I was like, is that something that y'all just do, or do y'all choose to do it? And she said it's more of a passive thing. Like they can't really turn it off. The only thing they can do is how much of it they want to push out. So even if she literally can't help it. But another thing she told me about was that Noongi and her weren't always the nicest people when they were younger. Like when they drained people, they drained them down to like the last drop. Again, you would think I was referring to a vampire, but no. Apparently, they drain your spiritual body, your essence, like what your life force in a sense. Like it's not blood. It's just I guess it's more spiritual than anything. But they used to take hosts. They used to kill them and then just leave them there, like draining a Capri Sun. And this conversation started getting a bit awkward because Nuki was getting very upset about it, and Noah and her tend to have very differing ideologies when it comes to that. Noah doesn't care. Nuki cares a lot, but there was a time when she also didn't. So I didn't like where this conversation was going, especially because it kept making her more upset. So I just told Noah to fuck off. She got annoyed with me and basically stormed out. So I was like, whatever, lady. So me and her had a sit down, and I asked Nuki. I was like, okay, you did all this what? A couple years back? She told me it was centuries ago. So I was like, okay. So that was like what, 200 years ago? You're not doing it now, right? Because what changed your mind? And she told me she she found a guy when she was younger, a nice young man that she had a crush on when she first saw him. He just went out foraging one day, picking up fruits, picking up berries, and same thing. Any small animals he could hunt, and he was just a gatherer. He just gathered food and hunted. And he knew the stories of the forest. He knew there were two witches that lived in it, but he wasn't scared of them. So when he went out, she saw him one day, just from the bushes, and he saw her. Neither of them said a word to each other. So he just left after he collected his stuff. She didn't pursue him. She didn't even leave yet. Next day, same thing. They came across each other again. And she just stared at him. She didn't really know what. Apparently, she was so nervous because, like, this was rare. He wasn't looking at her any other way. He was just observing her. He wasn't scared. He wasn't. She didn't even feel any lust coming off of him, which is kind of her thing. So, same thing. Day after day. He would show up, she would show up. They would just look at each other. He'd go back about his business. And one day, he just waved at her. Just a little passing wave. And she waved back. And then, day by day, every time she saw him, she'd get a little bit closer. She'd come out from behind the bushes and she'd be behind the tree, or sometimes even in the tree. But she would never step out directly, not into the open. And then they started talking. She said his name was Terry. And they just started to learn from each other. And then one day, Terry invited her to come towards the open with him because they were going to share some food together. And when she did, she got captured. Turns out the village had found out about Terry and her, I guess, interacting with each other. They didn't like the idea of it. They thought he was going to get mind controlled or swooped away and devoured because they thought she was an actual cannibal, so they thought she was going to put him in a stew. But lo and behold, it didn't work out that way because Terry actually did care for her. He was willing to run away with her. So at the night when she was supposed to be executed, because Nora couldn't really go to the village to rescue her, and she wasn't going to leave the forest, Terry freed her. They both took off. But on the way out, Terry got wounded by a stray shot from an arrow. He didn't make it. Ever since then, she was so torn up about it, she stopped devouring people like that. And then she learned she could just do it bit by bit to keep her going. She didn't need to take it all at once. She could just sprinkle it out. And I guess the more potent or more powerful the host of who she was taking from, the more energy she could gain from them, so on and so forth. Which I guess is why she liked me to an extent, because I'm just full of like raw spirit, I guess. But we had to go look for Nora because though they may not be on the best of terms right now, she still sees her as a dear friend and wouldn't want anything to happen to her. So I went to go with them. We split up to go cover more ground, and when I found Nora eventually, I also found that Typhon had taken Nuki hostage. And he said we had to appear at a warehouse at a certain time or he was going to kill her. And while I wasn't about to just let her die, I didn't also feel comfortable just passing off Nora to them because they were just going to execute her, and that kind of defeats the purpose of us going out of our way to save her. So we came up with the plan. And the plan actually, it kind of worked. We managed to get the drop on them at one point, and we separated them so where Nuki and Nora could get away from the area. But unfortunately, we got boxed in at one point, and it wasn't looking good. I was able to hold off Typhon a bit more. I even got used to dealing with him to the point where I could land some good hits on him. But then he started going into this weird, all black and gold, misty kind of form. Like, you could punch him and make contact, but then the second your fist made physical contact with his face, it would immediately just, you would feel the impact of you hitting him, and then you would feel yourself pushed through something. Like, like smoke. Like it's there, but it's not there. It's crazy. I don't know how he did that, but that was a pain in the ass to deal with. Also, problem with my fighting style is that it relies a lot on breathing. If I can't breathe right, I can't fight right. At least not with that form, my forms. And fighting a walking smoke cloud kind of hinders that. But eventually, we were all lined up in the wall, and it wasn't looking good. But luckily, or maybe divine intervention like, I was able to tap into my super form, and I didn't know how long I was still relatively new to it, so I couldn't hold it for very long, maybe at least 30 seconds. I didn't know how much time I had, so I basically just went all out all at once. I basically speed blitzed the shit out of Typhon and knocked him away. Then I immediately collapsed the entire building around the mobsters and buried them. And with the little time I did have left, outside of getting Nara and Nuki out the way, I dealt with Typhon's mist form by locking him in place with my wind and just wailing on him until I dropped from the form. Luckily, there was enough to deal with him, so I was good after that. The cops showed up too because of the commotion and arrested a lot of people on the spot. Typhon escaped, but he wasn't going to come back, especially if they weren't able to pay him for his job. He definitely wasn't coming back. But I know him. He's going to want a rematch soon. Ugh, and I got to deal with him. But no, I didn't really care. She didn't even say thank you. She just started going to the airport saying she was getting out of town. And then she also warned me not to get too attached to Nunki because I'm not the first man she's ever dated or fell in love with. And she'd outlive me, and I'd probably just be a picture on her wall after a while, and she'd even forget my name. I said, well, fuck you too, then. Have a good life. And I took Nunki for a walk because we had some stuff we needed to discuss. And I told her, don't worry so much about the future, as silly as that sounded. Let's focus more on the here and now. And the now is, I care for you. I care for you deeply. I dare go so far as to say I might even be catching feelings for you. And I told her, do you feel the same way? And she was nervous because she said, how do I, like, she was worried that the feelings I was developing was from her and not for her. So I decided to raise the stakes a bit. I told her to meet me a week from now. We'll go on a nice date. And we did. We went to the movies. We went to the beach. We went to the park. We just walked all over the place. And we had a great time. And during all that, I decided to, well, I proposed. And she said no. Fair enough. There's a bit of a rush. So I said, tell you what then. I'm going to try again later. That much I can promise you. And if we haven't seen each other in a while, and your effect can't linger on me if I'm not next to you, then you know it's genuine. And I didn't see her again after that. At least not for a good long while. About a year later, who do I see just, casually working at a restaurant but her? And I knew she saw me. I could tell. But I wanted to play it cool. So I waited. And all I told her was, I'll see you after your shift. Because she was working the morning shift that day. Second she got off, I was outside waiting for her. And before she could even get a word out, I was already on my knee. And I said, do you believe me now? And it was the darndest thing. She said yes. But she also warned me that she would more than likely outlive me. So I told her, you know, whenever you start missing me, I want you to step outside, close your eyes, and just let the wind flow around you. Every time it caresses you, that's me. Every time it dries the tears from your face, that's me. Every time it cools you off or riles up your skirt, that's me. Every time it envelops you, encircles you, and just makes you feel calmed, that's me. Because I'll always be there, even if I'm not. And it was nice after that. We got a little house together because, again, mercenary pays pretty good. And the funny thing was, people had questions about it. They're like, well, how do y'all make this work? Because her being, well, her. Well, it's that part is a little bit complicated because she has cravings, and I'm not always there to help satisfy her cravings. So, what she typically does, she'll change her form, find some random person, fill up her tank, so to speak, and that's it. Whenever she'll be back, she's usually back home waiting for me when I show up. But again, it's also a communication thing. I tell her in advance when I'm showing up, so she's not on the prowl, so to speak, before I get there. And then two, she doesn't bother messing with anyone else while I'm there. Besides, I've been trying to stay home a lot more recently too, just because if not, she'd miss me, and it'd go the other way around too. And again, it's the same thing. It's the way it works. She doesn't bring them by the house. She'll never bring them by the house. I will burn that shit to the ground if I catch a trace of another man there. I think like the only person that probably gets a pass would be my little brother Meru, and that's debatable. But yeah, that's kind of how we make that work. When she's with me, she's well fed. When she's not, she has to hunt. That's kind of just what happens. Besides, I'll settle down one day and then you don't have to worry about that. Besides, we even go on double dates sometimes. Me, her, Samson, Lily. It's a fun little time. Besides, sometimes I'll take her with me on our trips. Whenever we go do missions here and there, she's kind of like a unofficial member of the ETS. She's even started learning how to fight. She's got her own weapon too that she can summon. It's a special hammer. Boo's been wanting to augment for a while, so curious to see how that's gonna pan out. She even started learning how to throw kicks. Her and Lydia were practicing it a while ago. I don't know why everyone in this world is so keen to learn how to kick someone in the face, but I'm not gonna argue it. I remember one time I was gonna fight somebody because he was being like, you ever see those jokes where someone goes like, if this man slaps your girl's ass, what would you do? He tried to do that, and I immediately was about to crack my knuckles on his noggin. She instinctively kicked him in the jaw, and before he even got off the ground, she basically just butt slammed him into the pavement. And you could make the argument of like, oh man, she made that guy's day. He got fractures in his skull after that. He had to go to the hospital, and then we promptly had to run. Yeah, we're not going back to that grocery store for a while now, but that was impressive. It's actually kind of hot. But, me dreaming of her sitting on me is a whole different story. Just know that she is my lady and I love her. And also, these stories I'm telling you are before we met. Okay? I'm not even human looking at another woman these days. Because I think I got something that could work here. And something I want to work with. It's messy at times, maybe even a little bit turbulent, but it's mine. And I wouldn't trade for anything else in the world. You know what? We should go on vacation. Me and her. Take her somewhere nice, somewhere vibrant. Hmm. Maybe something with a good beach. Ooh, and a nice fireplace. Love you, girl.